It's your property. You're giving the keys away to something worth 100 or more £1,000, depending on whether you're up north or down south. And would you give the keys to your car to somebody in the same way? I don't think you would.
Ealing Council epically fail private landlords with their private rented housing scheme. We're going to have a look at what this has meant for one unfortunate landlord. So to explore this, I'm here as always with Andrew Roberts. Hi, Andrew.
Hi, Ranjan. What a great topic.
What a great topic. Now you'd think that, you know, a council, any local council, they are charged with enforcing housing standards, particularly in the private rented sector, so they would know all about the expected standards. So if they have a private rented scheme where basically private landlords can rent their properties to the council, they would lead by example and show and demonstrate how to properly manage a tenancy. That's what's happening here, surely.
Really? You really think that? Have you just got off a banana boat and sort of...
I think so. Tell the viewers what's gone on here.
Well, here, it's a really interesting case, and if you rent your property to a local authority for supported living or any other type of council scheme, you need to watch and pay attention to the detail. This particular landlord, during COVID, because he'd moved out of his own home and gone to live with family elsewhere in a more rural area, decided to let homeless people have access to his property. That is fine in the first instance. It was agreed for a period of a year.
By the way, it is very, very common that it's a common profile of person, of a private rented landlord who is basically dealing with their former main residence.
Correct.
And they've become an accidental landlord. So they are seeking to put it on rent, but they don't know anything about it. They're not doing it as a business. So they seek safety. Correct. In the local authority, thinking if I let it to the local authority and it's 5 years guaranteed rent, and on their website they're promising to look after it, they're promising to hand it back in the right condition, they're promising to pay up rent every month, what can go wrong? I mean, that is the mindset of the person that's giving their properties on these schemes.
Well, in this particular case, they'd only agreed for 12 months.
Yes.
For 12 months. And we're now, I believe, 3.5 years on, and they've only just been given access back to their property, but the keys are broken and they can't even get into the locks.
So it's been a failure from the start, really. Mismanagement of the property, it's riddled with damp, tons of snails in the place, it's disrepair. What has been the essence? Is it just pure incompetence? What do you think is the reason behind this failure?
Well, I think there's a number of failures. Number one, the landlord not actually reading the contract with the council. And this is a gross failure I see quite often, especially when...
How do you know that? Well, no, he hasn't read the contract, I mean.
Well, let's put it like this. The landlord is expecting the local authority to undertake repairs to the property.
Yeah.
However, the council's website detailing the scheme says that they will not repair the property. Now, this landlord joined the council scheme through what I would term an aggregator, from what I can find out on this matter so far.
Yes.
And basically he was giving it to this agent that then gave it to the council. So their in point is one area that he may have genuinely been misled that the council would give it back in the same or better condition than he gave it to them, because that's what the agent, the aggregator, had told him. Now
we're going to talk a little bit about these aggregators and some warning signs for you guys on these and what these aggregators do. But first, let me tell you about the Baker Street Property Meet. It's the UK's largest property investors networking meeting. It takes place on pretty much in the last week of every month in central London. To find out when our next meeting is and to join us, book your place at bakerstreetpropertymeet.com. Now, it does seem a bit strange to me. It's always seemed strange to me that the taxpayer should get value for money. And I don't understand what the middleman does, the aggregator does. So basically the council can't be bothered to deal with individual landlords. So they want some agent to package up a whole bunch of landlords together so that they only have to deal with one agent. But they've got their snouts in the trough for doing what?
Well, precisely. I mean, the purpose of it from a council's perspective is they do not want to be communicating with 300 landlords. They don't have the contacts with them. They don't want to deal with the landlords themselves. And often, although you might get some very professional and business-minded landlords, you can also get some landlords, and we've all met them at different times in our careers, where they tend to have a very small-minded approach to their business, unlike the viewers on this channel.
I mean, what I'd love to know is if you guys have let your property on a leasing scheme to a local authority, what's your experience been? Have you had the property back in good nick at the end of the tenancy, or have they not cared? Let us know your experiences in the comments below. Let's look at some of the learning points from this case. Let's first look at learnings for landlords looking for an easy letting by going for one of these council schemes. What advice would you give?
Well, number one, read everything in detail, and if you're unsure of anything, ask an expert. Ask somebody who is familiar with the terms that are being quoted, be it a lawyer or a property expert or an independent agent, to review the documentation.
Yes.
Because this landlord clearly did not.
And do remember, when you actually let a property, the normal way of working, the way we all work, is that I don't go along and let a property and say to, and the tenant goes along and says, you know what, here's the tenancy agreement I've drafted, sign it. That is effectively what's going on with these schemes. You as the landlord are getting a tenancy agreement drafted by the tenant. So that is why you've got to check it out. That does not happen in the normal situation. So in whose favour do you think that agreement is going to be?
Well, in this case, it was definitely written in the favour of the council, because they tucked away in there that any repairs and maintenance are down to the landlord, who was obviously clearly not being communicated with, because there was mould on the walls, the ceilings had come down, the toilet wasn't working, there were snails living there. I'm not sure if that was from the tenant in the flat below who was French, I don't know.
I mean, there's some contradictions here, because on one hand, the council's meant to give it back in a good condition and all of that, but the landlord's responsible for maintenance. And then, of course, there is the enforcement of standards in the private rented sector, which the council is responsible for.
Well, can I just stop you there? You say the council's responsible for giving it back in a good condition. From what I've read on the Ealing Council website, it doesn't say that. So is that the agent that was in between that said that misled or misdirected? I don't know.
That is the question, because it did say that somewhere, and I think you may be right. It might be the intervening agent. But then if the landlord is responsible, but it's a private rental scheme with the council, and the council's name is on the tenancy agreement as the landlord, and my understanding is that councils, local authorities, housing associations are exempt from the standards that we all have to adhere to in the private rented sector. So does that come under this gaping loophole?
It sounds like, to me, this has absolutely fallen into the Grand Canyon of whose problem is it?
And I guess with everyone working from home and all the rest of it, that no one's really picked it up. What a mess. I think if you want an easy life as a landlord, renting it to the council might not give you that guarantee, and always be wary when a tenant is producing the agreement, basically the rental agreement.
Absolutely. I mean, it's key. It's your property. You're giving the keys away to something worth 100 or more £1,000, depending on whether you're up north or down south? And would you give the keys to your car to somebody in the same way? I don't think you would. So check the agreements.
That's it for this episode of Property Breaking News. If you're liking this, of course, smash the like button. Also, don't forget to subscribe, hit the bell icon to get regular updates, which we put out each and every week. The Baker Street Property Meet is the UK's largest and #1 property investors networking event. The property market is going through monumental change right now, and at Baker Street Property Meet we aim to keep you up to date with the latest tips and tricks and insider tactics to help you keep on top of your property investing game and succeed in these troubled economic times. The Baker Street Property Meet is fundamentally about networking, because it's not what you know, it's who you know. And at Baker Street we aim to connect you with the people to make your property journey a monumental success. There's no better place to be to further your property investment journey than the Baker Street Property Meet. So make sure you're here, you're connecting with myself and Andrew Roberts, our expert guest speakers, and 300 passionate property people each and every month. See you at the next meet. Get your spot at bakerstreetpropertymeet.com.